Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, the High Guy Jacobs, and today we're taking a look at the second step into our deep dive in all the heroes and all that they've got, and we're going to be looking today at infantry heroes. Last time we went through ranged heroes as we had a couple new ranged ones drop, and we don't expect a new infantry hero now for at least a couple of months, so we are free to go ahead and take a look into what the infantry heroes have to deal with, have to offer, and obviously what kind of rallies and garrison lines that you can see running in infantry. Now, let's make this clear. We are talking just infantry. We are not talking any mix and matching. We are not talking any Boyd Ethans, anything like that. We are talking specifically within the infantry side of things, what is going to be kind of your best bets or your go-to picks or some of the better options to choose from, okay? And again, we will go through all heroes, all infantry heroes, and I will provide a ranking to these heroes based on the order that I bring them out in, okay? So the first hero that I introduce, in my opinion, is going to be the most influential hero in the game for the infantry side of things, okay? Obviously, the two first heroes that we'll start with are the super weapon heroes, and then we'll move into the rest. But does this mean that one is better than the other? No, they all do their own roles pretty well. We all have a kind of a nice balance in regards to these. But it does mean wholeheartedly that some of these heroes that you'll see in the list that are farther down the list, although they still have benefits, they find themselves further down the list just because the choices for infantry are kind of restricted at the moment. We've only got 13 heroes. We've got the least amount of heroes out of any troop type so far, and we're still missing our third super weapon hero as well. So let's dive into it, and we'll talk about what these infantry heroes have to offer. Now, the first one I'm going to speak about is my favorite hero so far. His name is Boyd Warden. He is the Lone Falcon. He is the one with the super weapon. He is the garrison hero, and I choose him as my first because I am a garrison hero player, and I honestly believe that Boyd is one of the best garrison heroes in the game currently. And yes, we'll talk about why in a little bit, but the basis of it is the fact that he does a lot of damage. He's got a couple of really good shields. He does defense. He does pretty much everything, and he works in the field as well. He's got some field playability. He hits pretty hard in the field, though he doesn't have movement speed. He does still hit pretty good in the field, so there's some playability there as well. Now, as per the usual, we're going to start this off by looking at their super weapon and then looking at them at max stats with skills transcended, okay? So the infantry weapon, this one here, the Doomsday weapon, what is it actually called? Howling Sentry, increases infantry squad damage by 10% for every 15% squad size lost, increases infantry squad attack by 5% and gain a 5% shield bonus. This effect stacks up to 6 times. So this does not mean that this is per time or this is over a specific time. This is going to stack, which basically means you're going to get a 30% shield bonus, a 30% infantry squad attack, and a 10% increase to overall infantry squad damage. So great stats for what he's dealing, and once you see what his skills work into and how that works with his shield, you'll understand why a 30% shield bonus is a very, very influential thing. Okay, so first and foremost, let's take a look at his skills as they are transcending. First and foremost, we've got his main rift frequency, dealing 14,000 damage to the target. When not rallied or when not garrisoned or in a rally, this damage is increased with the reduction of own squad size up to a maximum of 25%. So you can get an additional 25% when not in a rally or garrison. This changes once you have him transcended so that you're dealing 15,300 damage, and instead that reduction only goes to when he's not in a rally. Okay, so this means that when he's in a garrison, he will get the reduction of damage, increase in damage to reduction of squad size. The only thing he doesn't get is when he's not in a rally. So when he's on the field, he'll get that reduction in damage as well. When you have him in garrison, he gets that reduction in damage as well, and the increase in damage at the reduction of squad size, pardon me. So you get that everywhere once he starts to get transcended, right? So previous to this, the bonus damage is specifically when he's in the field, but once he gets transcended, that is specific to him being in garrison as well, which is why he starts to take better spots in that garrison side of things. Okay, he also gains a squad. Also, when the squad size is below 50%, gains a shield for 3 seconds based on 20% of this damage dealt. So when squad size is below 50%, he's going to he's going to trigger his skill for 15,300 and activate a 3-second shield based on 20% of the damage dealt. Okay? So he's going to add that extra shield. Now, if you have him transcended where you're getting an extra 30% based on his shield, well, you can start to see how that stacks. Okay? So he gets a shield. Once he's transcended, he gets a shield once he's below 50%. Next, we've got Predator's Deterrence. When Garrison increases skill damage by 30% and damage dealt to rider squads by 5%. When Transcended, increases skill damage by 30%, 35% all the time, with an increase in damage dealt to rider squads when garrisoned. So when he's not transcended, he's specific to being garrisoned. Once he transcends, you can use him more in the field here as well. He has more of that capability to his increase in skill damage. Okay. Next, you've got Omni Surveillance. When not garrisoned or in a rally, increases infantry squad attack by 40%. When garrisoned, increases infantry HP by 30%. So he's in the field, he hits for 40% harder. When he's in garrison, he's got a 30% HP instead. When taking skill damage, gains a shield factor at 2,000 for 3 seconds. This effect can be triggered every 6 seconds. So he ends up getting another shield here. So now we've got 2 different shields based on just his kit. He's got 2 different shields that appear based on his kit. Sorry, we're looking at this one. Omni Surveillance, based on his kit. Once he's transcended, when not rallied or when not garrisoned or in rally, increase that attack by 50%. And when garrison, increase your infantry by 35%. And then increase that shield factor to 2,500. So he's going to hit a lot harder in the field, right? When he's fighting in the field. And then he's going to be much tankier when he's in garrison. So he's got a lot of play, a lot of back and forth. And then lastly, Kinetic Energy. When this one here increases the infantry squad by 20%. When not garrisoned or in a rally, Warden gains a shield at a factor of 6,000 for 3 seconds every 2 rage skills he uses. So here's another shield that he provides. So what is this? 3 shields that he provides, right? He gets 1 off his main one once you transcend him. He gets 1 off his 3rd, and then he gets 1 off his 4th as well. Okay? And this is when he's not rallied, or when not garrisoned or in a rally, he gains that. So when he's in the field, he gains that shield. However, once you transcend it, he provides infantry squad attack at 25% naturally, and then when not in a rally, increases Boyd Warden's rage recovery speed by 30% and gains a shield. So now, once you transcend this, you're getting infantry squad attack by 20%, which in the field, if you have his other one, that's an extra 50%, 75% attack, which is dealing ridiculous damage. And then you get it when not in a rally. So when he's in the field, he increases his rage recovery and gains a shield factor for every 2 skills, which goes from when not garrisoned or in a rally. So he's still getting this in the field, but now he's gaining this in garrison as well. Right? So we start to see how he has a lot of flexibility. He plays in garrison really well, and he still does decently in the field as well. You can still play him in the field decently well to do a lot of damage. Okay? Because he still gets his shields, he still gets that, and he gets 75% infantry squad attack, which is a lot of infantry squad attack, right? When he's in the field. And then finally, when you transform him, when you awaken him, he goes from 20% of the shield's absorption is converted to damage and deflected to Boyd Warden's current target. So he's got 3 different shields that he's now dealing basically thorns damage to. But now he gets 25% of the shield is converted to damage and deflected by the current target. When the shield is lost, reduce damage taken by infantry squads by 12% for 3 seconds. And he's got 3 different shields. So when the shield is lost, not only is he dealing damage on that shield with his other damage that he's already getting, but now he's reducing overall damage taken by 12% for 3 seconds whenever his shields are lost. That's a lot of shields. It's a lot of damage reduction. It's a lot of absorption and reflection. Boyd becomes incredibly valuable inside garrison specifically, as well as on the field. So this is why I have him seated so high in the list. This is why I think he's probably one of the best picks, because he does have more flexibility than Stella. Okay? Now that's going to cover Boyd. Next, let's talk about Stella. Now, Stella the Brilliant Star is also a great, fantastic hero. Does have a decent amount of flex, but her flex is a little bit different. She is focused more for rallies. She doesn't do very well in the field, but she, if she's transcended, does okay in garrison. Okay, so she's got a little bit of flex there, but this is why she's not ranked the best in the infantry side of things. This is why she's probably secondary in regards to the super weapon heroes right now. Okay, and again, let's take a look at her weapon first, so we can understand what we're talking about, and then we can go into her transcended skills. So, counterattacks have an upwards of 50% chance to grant 3 rage, and to grant 8 rage, and increase infantry squad attack by 21% for 3 seconds. It can only be triggered once per second. Okay? Once per second, but that doesn't mean it can't stack. So once per second, let's say it triggers once every second, that means that you end up with a 21 increase for 3 seconds. This effect can be triggered only once per second. So it's once per second, but it doesn't say that it can't stack. So if it does, you can end up with a 42% or even a 63% infantry squad attack. 42% more likely, right? With rage recovery every second and a 50% chance of that triggering. So it is very, very possible for you to end up with like a consistent 42% or at least a consistent 21% infantry squad attack across all levels. But truth be told, this is just one of the weaker super weapons when you look at everything else. I mean, infantry squad attack 21% is good. Rage recovery 8 is kind of meager. And a trigger rate of only 50% is also kind of meager. So it's, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Now, when we look at her skills, let's go around the horn. First and foremost, we're getting deals damage to the enemy target at a factor of 13.5, so we're a little bit less than Boyd, and increases own counter damage by 22.5% for 3 seconds. So we're going to get a huge increase to counter damage. Okay. If rallying, counter damage increases to 29% instead. So this is why she does really well in rallies, and even does decently well in garrison, because you can still get the 22.5% of your counter damage in garrison, which if you're taking multi-rallies, right, you're dealing a decent amount of counter damage. That's going to be a decent way to help defend against that. Now, once it's transcended, you're looking at a 14,750, increasing only counter damage by 25%, increasing the damage if rallying damage increases to 32%, and gains a stack of War Will and gains a shield. Okay? Pardon me, I needed some coffee to help my voice. So, not only does she increase that counter damage, but if she's rallying, she increases the damage by even further and gains a stack and gains a shield. Okay? So again, you can see why she works in rally better than what she does in garrison, but you can still get that 25% counter damage increase with a 14,750 punch to the face. So it's still pretty good. Next, we've got Battle Dance. What we're going to start off with here is an increase to infantry squad attack by 32%, giving counterattacks with a 30% chance to grant a stack of War Will to oneself and up to 2 stacks per second. This effect stacks up to 10 times. Each stack of War Will reduces basic attack damage taken by 4%. Stacks up to 10 times means you have a 40% reduction in basic attack damage taken. And if you're being swarmed, everybody is dealing you basic attack damage. You are dealing counterattacks to everybody. So this is kind of a good anti-swarm mechanic, right? Because she's going to be taking much less damage up front and dealing way more in the counterattacks. Plus, counterattacks have a 30% chance to grant that stack of War Will up to 2 stacks per second. Once she's transcended, you're getting 42% increase to your squad attack with a 50% chance to grant stacks of War Will to oneself. Same 2%, 2 stacks per second, and the same 4% basic attack damage reduced up to 10 times. Okay, so a 42% infantry squad attack with a 50% chance to grant these War Will stacks, which is going to increase or reduce that basic attack damage taken. Okay. Next, during rallies, increases infantry squad HP by 26% and squad counter damage by 24%. More counter damage. And a decent HP. When you awaken her, that HP comes with you everywhere. So this is where you start to see her in garrison a little bit once you have her transcended. And you get this HP buff at 30% is good. And then an additional 26.5 during rallies of squad counter damage. Okay. Lastly, looking at final performance, when having 10 or more War Will stacks, clears all War Will stacks and deals damage to the enemy target at a factor of 11,200. When own squad size is less than 50%, the damage increases by an additional 20%. Okay, so now when you get that 10 War Will stacks, not only do you have a reduction in that, but then it's going to clear that and punch in the face for 1120, restarting the stacks once more. Okay, when you're squad size, you're going to have an additional 20%. Now, when you have this transcended, it's going to clear again, deal 1288, and increase all damage by 8.5%. Okay, so that becomes a huge bonus because you're going to punch in this and then increase all damage by 8.5%, which will trigger both into your rage skill and what have you. So it becomes very, very dominant for her being awakened, being transcended in those roles. But this becomes her problem, okay? Because she doesn't really work in the field. All of her stuff is based on being in rallies, is when she gets most of her stuff. And the rest of it isn't really field related. Yeah, HP is there, but it's not really field related. It's not really doing the benefits for you. Counter damage is good, but only really if you're being swarmed. You're missing a lot of that kind of stuff if you're fighting one-on-one. She doesn't have any movement speed, all this kind of stuff. So it becomes kind of pigeonholing her into running rallies or co-leading in garrison. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But again, in my opinion, this is why she kind of gets pigeonholed to where she is. She's got a ton of counter damage, which is great. She has these War Will stacks, which is great. When rallying, increases her damage by a ton, increases her HP by a ton, increases her counter damage by more, increases more damage. So there's benefits to being her in rally. But you look at her last skill here, increases counter damage by 21%, so more counter damage. When war stacks are cleared, has a 20% chance to immediately gain 2 of them again. If rallying, the chance increases to 40%. So again, those War Will stacks, which are important, are tied heavily to her in rally. Once you have her totally awakened, transcended, she gets that counter damage to 32%, which is a huge increase, with a 30% chance to gain 2 right off the rip, and gains a shield at 2100. If rallying, the success changes to 100%. Right? So she is a rally hero. You will want to use her rally leading. However, you can still use her in garrison, things like that, so we will still mention that. But this is also why I don't think she has as much flexibility as Boyd. Boyd can literally do a little bit of everything. You might not put him in rallies, but you can, and he still does okay. He does good in the field, he does great in garrison, he does okay in rallies. Stella does great in rallies, she does okay in garrison, and she's poo-poo in the field. So that's kind of how I rank them. Now, next we're going to talk about, outside of the super weapon heroes, we are going to talk about my next favorite hero, Bodala, the Spirit Exorcist. One of the newer heroes that's come out. Obviously, you'll see a lot of these newer heroes are ranked a little bit higher than the older ones, just because the newer ones hit harder, have more influential skills, this and that. That's just how IGG is. They balance the game by releasing new heroes, not by balancing the metrics. But we look at Bodala and let's run through his skills. First, gaining enlightenment. At 1,000 rage, he's going to gain a shield at a factor of 12,500. When his shield vanishes, deals the remaining 50% of the shield value as true damage to up to 3 nearby enemies. Deals at least 15% max shield value as damage. So even if you lose your entire shield, you're still dealing 15% of that as true damage. True damage will not be affected by enemies' defense again, which means that it's basically a straight punch to the face for upwards of, at least 15%, at what is that, 1,500 or 2,000 at least to your face directly when that shield breaks, even if you don't. And if you don't break the shield, it's going to be even more that goes directly to your face with no defense, okay? So this right here is pretty valuable. True damage is always a good factor. And the fact that he provides this shield and then deals damage to up to 3 targets means that AoE is pretty decent. Okay. Next, you've got 6 faculties purification. When not garrisoned, increases infantry squad defense by 32%, HP by 11%, and travel speed by 20%. So this is why Bodala actually works in rallies as well, why you can use Bodala in rallies, because he's just specific to not being in garrison. Now, does this mean that you can't run Bodala in garrison? Technically, no. I mean, you could if you don't have any other options. I've seen Bodala Boyd work pretty well, but in my opinion, because you're missing out on his defense's HP, you're kind of losing out on a whole skill, which makes him less valuable. Okay? Next, you've got Karma Cutting. Counterattacks remove 9 rage from the enemy and have a 20% chance to deal additional damage at 1960. So a reduction in rage is huge, especially when we're talking counterattacks, right? So this is for everybody. It's not just basic attacks. So when somebody is attacking you, right? If you're being swarmed, your reduction in count or in rage to everybody. And that nice little additional damage, 20% chance. Those counterattacks having a 20% chance to deal damage to the enemy at 1960 is also a nice defense against swarming. Okay. Next, you've got ephemeral body and mind. Increase infantry squad attack by 34%. While shield is active, reduces damage taken by 6.5%. Reduces all damage taken by 6.5% while his shield is active. Okay. So while his shield is active, he's now stronger. He takes less damage. The damage that he doesn't take that he's able to mitigate ends up getting reflected back. He's got a decent amount of play. And this is all within fields and within rallies. So he actually works in rallies too. Okay. And then lastly, once he's awakened, that shield goes to 12,005. Before it's 10-8, which isn't bad. Dealing 50% of the damage up to it. And it moves up. So you go from 10-8 and 2 targets to 12-5 and 3 targets. Okay? So that's what he gets from being awakened. Which is good for effectively for a hero that anyone can get. Put your chips into. Bodala is a great choice. After that, we're going to talk about Eileen. She's also a brand new hero that came out. And truth be told, the only reason I don't put her first is because, in my opinion, she's a little too glass cannon. She doesn't have enough defense herself. She needs a little bit more defense, so she kind of has to play with others. This is why I like to pair her with Bodala. I like to pair Bodala and Eileen together. Lead with Bodala. Eileen is secondary, and that should be pretty common when you look at the hero talents because of the bonus 7.5% skill damage that you want to provide to Eileen because of Eileen's skills. Okay? And let's look at Eileen. First is Chain Lightning. She's going to deal 14,500 to one target and then deals damage at 8,500 to up to 2 nearby targets. Okay, so she's dealing a bunch of damage, and this isn't, it's not taken down. It's not like it's 15% less for each one. This is 14,500 to the main one and 8,500 to up to 2 others. So you do that number, and that's over 30,000 damage that she's dealing out right then. It's like 31,000 damage. Okay, so she hits really hard. She's also going to increase infantry squad attack by 20%. Basic attacks also have a 20% chance to deal an additional 1,500 damage. Can be triggered 1 time every 3 seconds. If the target is flanked, the damage factor is increased to 2,500. Okay, so she likes to be in the field. She likes to be fighting with multiple marches, multiple groups. Okay. Next, we've got Overclock Circuit. Increases squad damage by 10%. It's like the overall damage. When attacking squads not garrisoned or in a rally, increases basic attack damage by 20% and reduce counter damage by 10%. So again, she wants to be in the field. She doesn't want to be in rallies. She doesn't want to be in garrisons. She wants to be in the field. Okay? Now, does this mean that you can't put her in rallies or garrisons? No. But, again, just looking at what her skills provide, looking at everything, you want to be able to run a little bit differently with her. Okay? Reduce counter damage by 10%. Next, we've got Electromagnetic Acceleration. Increase infantry squad attack by 35% and travel speed by 20%. So we're getting infantry squad attack by 30%. Whoops. We've got infantry squad attack by 35%. We've got infantry squad attack by 20%. So that's 55% infantry squad attack. Great. Right? So she's hitting really hard. She's increasing damage by an additional 10%. Increasing basic attack damage by 20%. And then she punches really hard here. But as you can see, there's no defense, no HP, nothing like that. So she's super glass cannon. Right? She's super glass cannony. It just means that you need to put her with someone with defense in order to make her valuable. So I pair her with Bodala. You could pair her with Adut. You could pair her with Eddie. I mean, you could pair her with a lot of things that have defense. Okay? And then once you have her transcended, that's where her damage goes up huge. Okay? So beforehand, you have to realize this. I missed this. Beforehand, you're dealing 14,000. And then when the squad size is more than 50%, you're dealing extra damage. And then she just gets that pure outside of that. So that's why you want to kind of get her awakened. Still dealing good damage here, but dealing amazing damage here. once you have her awakened. Okay? And that's going to wrap it up for Eileen. Next, hero by choice by ranking, I'm going to go with Miyamoto. Miyamoto Doichi, the Scorched Earth Wanderer. And let's compare him to his skin. Okay? Because the truth is, his skin does make him better. It does give him more value. It does make it more interesting. Okay? So first and foremost, 2 heavens is 1. You're going to deal damage to up to 3 target enemies in a fan-shaped area in front for 13,000. Damage taken by each enemy each enemy squad reduces by 20% for every additional target enemy squad. So if you're hitting 3, you're going to hit 3 for like 9,000 damage or 8,000 damage versus 1 for 13. Okay, so you'll hit 3 for 8 versus 1 for 13. You'll hit 2 for like 11 or 10 or something like that. Okay? So, 13,000 punch to the face isn't bad. Once you get the skin, it now turns into a semicircular area in front with a reduction of only 10% for each squad. So he hits much harder. 3,500 with only a reduction of 10 in a semicircular area. So that by itself is actually pretty good in regards to the skin. Next one we're getting here, when leading only infantry squad, damage increases by 12%. Counterattacks have a 20% chance to reduce enemy HP by 27% for 3 seconds. Which is huge. A reduction in HP is huge, and an increase of 12% damage is also very huge. Once you get the skin involved, when leading only infantry squad increased by 15%, have a 25% chance to reduce by 30%. So you can see it's much better. An extra 3% damage, an extra 3% reduction, and an extra 5% chance to reduce. So much more valuable. Okay? Next, we've got swift momentum, increasing your infantry squad attack by 40% and travel speed by 25%. I believe that's once it's awakened. We have to look back at that because I believe, it goes from 30% and 15% to 40% and 25% when you awaken them. Okay? I don't believe this changes anything. Yeah, I don't believe this changes anything. It's still 45 and 30. Oh, maybe it is. Hold on. Yeah, 40 and 25. With the skin, it's 45 and 30. So you even get an increase there with the skin. And here we get an increase of squad defense by 20%, with counterattacks have a 20% chance to reduce skill damage dealt by the enemy by 28%. So Miyamoto is great on defense, good on damage. He's got good debuffing skills. He's fast in the field. He's got lots to play with. Once you get his skill, we're looking at, again, still 20% chance to reduce it by 28% with a skill defense of 20%. So there's no comparison on this one, right? There's no increase on this one. But again, this is where this difference comes in. You get 30% attack, 50% travel speed to 40 and 25. And then once you have him transcended, it goes 45 to 30. Okay? So it becomes a situation where obviously Miyamoto is better with the shield, or with the skin. But I still think that Eileen and Bodala are better, though there is nothing wrong with running Bodala Miyamoto. That's also a good line. Adut Miyamoto, anything like that. Those are good lines. We can talk about those in a little bit later too, or as we go through. Sorry. But that's going to wrap it up for Miyamoto. Great choice, great field fighter. Lots of potential. You can use him in things like garrison. He doesn't have any reduction in that. You can use him in things like rally. He doesn't have any reductions there. You can kind of use him in a lot of different places, so this is why he's got a lot of value. So don't feel bad about putting him in places you think he might not belong. Okay? After Miyamoto, we're going to touch into Adut. Adut, the Black Pearl. She's a bit older, but she still has value, and we'll see through her skills why that is. So she does deal 12,000, which again, we're starting to see a reduction in those skill damage. But she does increase your squad's defense by 30% for 3 seconds, so she will make you much tankier. So this is why, for example, you put her with Eileen, right? Lead with Bodala, or lead with Adut, Have Eileen as number 2. You're going to get that nice squad defense by 30%, making Eileen much tankier, right? Which is kind of what you need. Next, we've got increasing infantry squad attack by 11 seconds, or 11% every 5 seconds until 44%. Now, the problem here is in order to get that full 44%, you have to be in battle for 20 consecutive seconds. And in the field, chances are you're not going to be in the battle for 20 consecutive seconds. So this becomes one of the reasons why she's not nearly as good, because in order to get that full value, like a lot of field fighting is hitting in the field, then running away, then hitting in the field, then running away, then hitting in the field, then running away. So you're never really ramping it up. And if you don't even fight for 5 seconds, you're not even increasing this by 11%. So you're really not getting anything out of Adut for that, right? So you just have to be careful about that. You want to be aware of that. Next, she's going to increase travel speed by 30%. If the damage reduction debuff is active on your squad, there's a 50% chance to nullify the debuff and heal your squad at a factor of 4,400. Okay? If the damage reduction buff... Oh, so if someone has a damage reduction buff. Okay, I see. So she's kind of helps for that type of damage reduction nullification. It's not really a big factor. There's not, I mean, like it's not a huge factor. It's great, but most of it comes down from that travel speed. If a damage reduction debuff is active on your squad, there's a 50% chance to nullify it. Like, that's good. That's good. It's a bonus little defense, but it's not going to be super effective, right? It's not going to be triggered very often. Next, Perseverance, increasing infantry squad attack by an additional 40% if the remaining squad size is greater than 50% while battling on the world map. Increases defense by 40% if the remaining infantry squad size is smaller than 50%. Okay? So when you're fighting and you're at full strength, you're going to hit harder. But once you drop below 50%, you become tankier. Okay? See what I'm saying? So it gives you the capability to hit while you're strongest and run away when you're weakest. And then once she's fully awakened, upon receiving skill damage, reduces skill damage received by you and nearby allies by 20% for 2 seconds. Can be triggered once every 6 seconds. Affects up to 5 squads. So she's good in the field, good for that kind of debuffing and things like that to help with that squad damage. Or skill damage, pardon me. Okay? So she hits really hard, decent defense. Well, not hits really hard. She hits decently hard, decent defense, decent movement speed, but a little bit old, right? She's a little bit older, which is why she's a little bit lower on the list. But that's going to wrap it up for Adut. Next, we've got Marco. Now, Marco is going to be sitting in the 7th space. Specifically, I mean, he could absolutely go higher. He has an absolute dominant kit. He's got an absolute dominant amount of skills. His damage is great. His debuff is great. He's a great hero. The problem is he's twice as expensive. He is a collab hero, meaning he's twice as expensive. So is he good? Yes. Is he twice as good as every other hero? No. That's why he gets ranked down lower. If you have him awakened, fantastic. You're already ahead of the game. But as you can see, I'm still behind, working on getting him transcended, and man, is it ever a headache. Is he worth it? He's probably, in my opinion, one of the only collab heroes that is truly worth it. Like Jack is good, but not twice as good. Mai is good, but not twice as good. Marco Neri is probably the only one that I would say is close to being that, because his kit is super, super, super beneficial. First and foremost, collab heroes have this little bonus. So they're going to deal increased damage to the squads that they deal damage to, but take more damage from the ones that deal more damage to us, right? So we're going to deal more damage to riders, but take more damage from ranged. However, when we go through his skills, we'll start to see why he is ranked where he is and why he has the value he does. First and foremost, he's dealing damage to the enemy target at 1,300 or 13,000, and then reduces rage by up to 5 nearby enemies by 80. This effect can be triggered when the same target only once in 5 seconds. Okay, so a reduction in 80 means that you're going to be getting off less skills than I am. Even by, what is that, 8%? 8% less skills just in my reduction in rage. And that's happening to more than one target. That happens to up to 5 targets. Okay? So that by itself is good. 13,000 punch to the face with reduction in 80 rage. Next, we have counterattacks with a 30% chance to reduce HP by up to 5 nearby enemies by 47%. Okay, that's huge reduction in HP numbers. Okay, so counterattacks have a 30% chance to reduce this. Can only be triggered once every 5 seconds. But that's going to be once every 5 seconds for 3 seconds. Especially if you're being swarmed in a rally, in a garrison, anything like that. Okay? Next, every 10 seconds grants a shield to oneself at a factor of 3,300. Also reduces travel speed and damage of up to 5 nearby enemies by 35% and 16% respectively. So again, reduction in HP, reduction in travel speed, reduction in overall damage, shield factor, punch to the face, rage reduction. I mean, we start to see how his abilities are just ridiculous. During field battles, squad attack increases by 27% and travel speed increases by 22%. Okay? Not bad. And then lastly, when he's awakened, he gets a new skill when taking skill damage. There's a 50% chance to restore HP up to 3 nearby allies at a factor of 1,600. So every skill damage, he now can heal his allies. So he's got HP debuff. He's got rage stealing. He's got shields. He's got counterattacks dealing more damage. What was that counterattacks? Reducing overall damage. Counterattacks reducing travel speed. Increase in attack. A heal factor. The guy's crazy good. But again, the problem is he's a collab hero, so he costs twice as much to awaken. If I wanted to awaken this next skill, for example, normally it would cost 75. It's going to cost me 150 fragments. So, although I'm this close to having him transcended, I'm really only about halfway. I still need about 500 fragments to awaken him. Okay? So that becomes a problem. But that's going to end it up for Marco. Now, we're going to go into one of my favorite heroes for Garrison. Her name is Riven. She does really well in Garrison. Not so good in the field, not so good in rallies, but she does do Garrison very, very, very well. Okay? First and foremost, she's got this punch in the face, deals damage to target every second for 4 seconds at a factor of 3,900. If garrisoning, increases squad defense by 32% for 3 seconds. Okay, so yeah, she first off punches 3,900 doesn't seem like much until you multiply that by 4 because it's every second for 4 seconds. So 9, 18, 27, 36, that's 15,600 damage to one target. 15,600, that's a lot. And then if garrison increases your squad defense by 32%, which is pretty huge. Next, we have an increase in infantry squad HP by 30%. When in alliance territory, infantry squad defense increases by an additional 15%. So she does work in the field. Again, these are all still field related, except for this garrison one. So she still gets the HP and the defense here. Right? But this also means if you're garrisoning inside of your own area, you're getting 32% here plus the 15, that's 47%, right? Now we're going to increase the infantry squad attack by 24%. Counterattacks have a 20% chance to grant a shield to oneself at a factor of 1,700. So she also provides a shield for herself with an increase of squad attack. Can be triggered once every 3 seconds. So you can anticipate if she's swarmed, for example, she's going to have that on all the time, that shield. Right? Next, we've got this. Adds a 30% bonus to the obtained shield. While the shield is active, counter damage increases by 27%. Guess what? This is for any shield. Adds a 30% bonus to the obtained shield. So if you pair Bodala and Riven, Bodala's shield gets a 30% bonus. You paired Boyd with Riven, Boyd's shields get an additional 30% bonus. And while the shield is active, there's a counter damage increase of 27%. Which is just huge. It's ridiculous. Okay? And then lastly, when she's awakened, when taking skill damage, has a 50% chance to grant a shield to oneself for 3 seconds. And an additional shield. So talk about tanky. She's got a shield, and she's got HP, she's got defense, a hard-hitting punch. Works really well in garrison. Okay? Decent in the field, especially if you're fighting in your area, in your alliance area. She's okay as well. But not something you're going to focus on because she doesn't debuff. She only hits one target, right? She's only going to be beneficial to that one squad. Okay? Now, after Riven, we start getting into a lot of the older heroes. We're going to talk about Eddie next. Now, yes, Eddie is kind of a controversial hero because he does work in field, he does work in garrison, and he does work in rally. The problem is Eddie is old. So it's not that Eddie is bad, it's just that these other heroes are better. Eddie does good in rally, Stella is better. Eddie does good in garrison, Boyd, Riven are better. Eddie does good on the field, Bodala, Miyamoto are better. So it's not that Eddie is bad, it's just that he's old. Okay? And we see this because his damage factor is only 11,300. Now he gains a shield for 2 seconds, but that's it. So he punches in the face for 11,300, gains a shield. Increase infantry squad defense by 30%. When the remaining squad size is less than 30%, increase counter damage by 15. So we can just see his stats are just outdated. A 15% increase in squad counter damage when you're less than 30% is not enough. Okay, it's not good enough. When leading only infantry squads, increase counter damage by 40, or increase counter damage dealt by 44%. So you're getting 40% there plus an extra 15% here when you're at 30% less. So again, good in rallies, decent in the field if he's being swarmed. Increase infantry squad HP by 30%. During sieges, basic attacks have a 20% chance to reduce the enemy's squad HP by 25%. This effect can be triggered at once most every 2 seconds, or every 6 seconds, pardon me. So again, you're getting HP, you're getting defense, you're getting counter damage, right? When you're in sieges, or when you're leading rally squads, pardon me, or infantry squads, pardon me, you're gaining a shield, right? You have that reduction in HP. When he's awakened, when that shield is broken or disappeared, reduce the HP of up to 3 nearby enemies by 20%, so we get an additional 20% reduction in HP. So there's value here, but you just look at his stats compared to the others, and they're just not nearly as beneficial. His damage is weak. The rest of his buffs are weak in comparison. He still has value, but I don't use him near as much. I would probably run Stella Bodala over Stella Eddie, or Stella Marco for that matter, as a rally. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about Thunder. Now, Thunder used to be my favorite hero of all time. He used to be, honestly, the best hero in the game before they started to shit on healing. Because healing by itself is amazing until you realize what it does. Okay? And this is the two differences. When you're in battle, your troops, once they take damage, are determined to be heavily wounded or lightly wounded. Lightly wounded goes back to your shelter when you return your troops, and they're fine, they can go back to battle. Heavily wounded go to the hospital. But when you're in battle with someone who heals, they are taking that calculation and they are calculating your lightly wounded troops. They are healing your lightly wounded troops, making them active again, which gives them more of the capability of getting the hospital treatment. So all that healing does, yes, it technically brings more troops. It brings more troops to the hospital. So it's much more expensive to heal. It's much more expensive on troops. You end up filling up your hospital faster. You end up filling up your aid station faster because of the hospital being over full. So it leads to overall cost. Does it make for a tanky line that'll take forever to kill? Yes, 100%. But you don't ever lead with a Thunder rally or a Thunder garrison in hopes of defeating the opposing rally. You do it in hopes of counter-rallying the opposing rally. Right? Thunder is not there to deal damage. He's there to just tank. And we see this by how this starts. Okay? His rage recovery skill, or his rage skill is called Super Thunder, has no damage to it, only heals every second for 5 seconds at a factor of 2,800. So if you think about this, 2,800 times 5 is 14,000. So you're healing 14,000 every 5 seconds. And you're triggering your rage skill every 6 seconds. So you're pretty much consistently healing throughout the entire time of the battle. Okay? Reduces the attack of up to 3 squads in a fan-shaped area by 30% for 2 seconds. Reduces rider squads attack by an additional 15%. So it's a decent reduction in attack, but you're not doing any damage. So it's all heal and all reduction, no damage. Okay? His second ability, increasing defense in HP. But defense is only 10%, so that's pretty low. HP 30%, that's good. Defense 10%, that's low. Next, reduces squad's damage received from basic attacks by 30%. Decent. Increases counter damage by 22% while garrisoned. Decent. But again, no real damage. An increase in counter damage is good, but when you look at Stella, who provides way more counter damage, or Boyd, who provides shielding instead of healing, you start to see why he falls out very, very quickly. We've got Secret Base. When Garrison reduces all damage taken by 12% with a 10% chance to recover HP at a factor of 2200 when counterattacking. Can be triggered once every 6 seconds. So again, more tank, but no damage. More healing, but no damage. More troops in the hospital, but no damage. The only damage we get from Thunder Pearson comes from his Awaken skill. Once he's awakened, increases damage for you and nearby allies by 15% after using a skill. Lasts for 2 seconds, affects up to 3 squads. So you lead with Thunder with, say, Lewis as your number 2, or say Riven as your number 2, and that 15% bonus will trigger on their skill. So you'll be able to bonus one damaging skill by 15%. But that's all that Thunder brings to the field. Tons of healing, tons of defense, nothing else. So this is why he fell off very quickly. Well, not very quickly, but he fell off once we started to see shielding heroes coming in, once Riven came in, once Bodala came in, once Riven came in, Ryaro was the number 1 choice. So this becomes the options that we're looking at, right? Thunder, not bad, just not great. Now, truth be told, I probably could have switched these up a little bit. I probably could have gone with Ryaro instead of Thunder in this position, only because shielding is so much more effective, right? So Ryaro might, have more playability outside of that, but I see Thunder Toms more than I see Ryaro Rivens anymore. Okay? So maybe that's just my own personal bias, but they're pretty closely related. They do the same thing, and they both suffer from the same problems. Ryaro, for example, is entirely tanky. He doesn't deal a lot of damage, okay? And this becomes Rygaro's problem. So even if you wanted to equate Thunder and Ryaro on the same level, at the same ranking, that would be fine, okay? And let's go through. So he activates a shield that absorbs damage for 3 turns. So he activates a shield that absorbs 9,600 damage, right? Ryaro recovers 20 rage for every enemy that attacks him, up to 60 rage per turn. So, not dealing damage, absorbing damage. Right? This is before they started to do the shielding shielding numbers in blue. Where's the shield? Hold on. Right? The shield factor. They did a damage factor here. Okay? So again, no damage, just a shield and a recovery of rage. Decent. Okay? Reduces damage taken by squads by 5% and increases squad counter damage by 30%. So this is good. When attacked, reduces the attacker's travel speed by 30% for 5 seconds. Can only be triggered once every 10 seconds. So this is good, but he doesn't really work in the field, so it's not like you're going to be using him in the field anyways. I mean, you can use him in the field, but for what? He's just a tank. Okay? Increase squad infantry by infantry squad attack by 15 and defense by 15. Pretty low stats. Increases damage dealt by 16% when a shield is activated. When garrisoning, increases infantry squad HP by an 11%. So the 11% HP is low. The increase in damage is good when the shield is activated, but he doesn't deal damage. So the only damage we're talking about is counter and basic, or what his co-leader will do. So this is why him and Riven, for example, is good, because this is going to increase damage dealt by 16% on Riven's shields as well. So it creates some nice synergy there. And then once you have him awakened, he goes from increasing squad counter damage by 20% and a reduction at 25% for your speed to reduces all damage taken by squads by 5% and then increases the squad damage by 30%. Okay? So you get a reduction in all damage taken and an increase in squad damage by 30% when he's awakened. But this becomes his problem. Tons of tank, no damage. And this game is all about damage, unfortunately. It's all about racing damage. All these heroes are doing so much damage, and you can only defend against so much if you're not doing your own. Okay? So Thunder and Ryaro are all kind of within that same category to me. Next, we've got Robert, King of Rock. We're getting close to the bottom of the list, and of course, he's only here because there's better choices. He's got the skills. He's got the infantry squad. He's got decent damage. He's got shielding. He's got debuffs. He's got options, but there's just better heroes. Bodala's better. Eileen is better. Adut, Miyamoto are better. Right? Robert's not bad. There's just better heroes. And you see this by his damage numbers. Deals damage to the target at only 12,500. Reduces the target's HP by 25%. Good reduction in HP. Don't get me wrong. Every skill, it's decent. Infantry squad attack by 20%. 16% of the damage absorbed by the shield will be deflected and dealt to the enemy. Again, not bad. Right? But you need a shield. Right now, I don't have a shield. Here we go. Eternal Grove. When using basic attacks, there's a 20% chance to grant a shield to oneself and an allied squad for 2 seconds at a factor of only 2,400. Once every 6 seconds. So you get once every 6 seconds, you get this. With 16% of the damage absorbed by the shield reflected. And that damage, it's only 2,400. So 16% of 2,400 is like 500. It's less than that. It's like 300. So it's not very much damage. Okay? Counterattacks have a 20% chance to burn the enemy for 3 seconds, dealing damage every second at 1,200. So that's 12, 24, 3,600 damage, which isn't bad. Again, just not as much as we need. And then once he's awakened, increases burn damage dealt to squads inflicted with HP reduction by an additional 50%. So you can still use Robert with other teams that reduce damage. So Robert Eddy is still a good line. Right? Like I would still use Robert Eddy as probably my choice line with Robert. But that's after Bodala Eileen, after Adut Miyamoto, after Boyd Riven. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of other options that we would put out first before you get to Robert Eddy. Okay? So, not a bad hero, just a little outdated. But this brings us to our last hero, the one who's fallen to the bottom. And it's only because, again, his damage is weak, his healing is weak, and he's old. He doesn't have as much play. Right? You're not going to see him in many places. Yes, he's still, here's a prime example. His damage is only 7,200. Yes, he reduces target damage by 15% and heals for 48, so he does like a punch and heal type thing, and then reduces damage taken by you and nearby allies by 15%. So it's decent. Reduces target's damage, reduces damage taken, small punch, small heal. But that's really kind of it. Squad counterattacks have a 10% chance to deal 4,000. So once every 10 seconds that you're in battle, maybe. It's not great. Infantry squad HP and defense by only 15%. Not great. Now, this increased healing effects by 30%. Good, but healing isn't the main thing anymore. So you can pair Thunder and Tom together in garrison and have that garrison last forever, but you'll lose a ton of troops. Right? It'll be super tanky, have great healing, but you'll lose a lot of troops. So again, he just falls behind. And then once you have him awakened is when you see it. Because before it's actually 6,000 damage and 4,000. But it goes up to 7,200, reduces the damage by 15%, heals, and then a reduction in all damage taken. So once you have him transcended, he becomes a little bit more usable. But again, there's no real benefit. Right? With what everybody else does, with the AoE damages that we're getting from a lot of these other heroes, with the HP reduction buffs, with the rage stealing, with all these other things that we're getting from these other heroes, Tom just doesn't have a place anymore. And unfortunately, that's going to end it for all 13 of our heroes. Right? However, what we're going to do now real quick is we're going to run through some lines, some choice lines for rallies and garrisons. Because when it comes to the field, the truth is we're kind of lackluster. We've got a couple of options, right? You've got Bodala Eileen, Bodala Miyamoto, Adut Miyamoto, Bodala Marco Claude. We've got these types of choices, but we don't nearly have the bag that, say, Range does. We don't nearly have the bag that Riders do. Okay? But we do have choice when it comes to rallies, and we do have choice when it comes to garrisons. For example, for rallies, I would look, probably my favorite march is going to be Stella Marco. Okay? Stella when she's transcended, is fantastic as a rally leader. Marco, when he's transcended, even at 5.525, is great with the shielding, with the damage debuffs, with the rage stealing, with the HP reduction, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so Stella Marco is good. I'd look at Stella Bodala is a good one. Stella Eddie, right? Stella Eddie. Eddie still has value here. Stella Eddie's a good one. Bodala Marco would be a decent one. And if you have to, if you're on an older account, there's nothing wrong with going Robert Eddie. Robert Eddie is still a pretty decent one. But it's also not the best. It's not going to be good as your super weapon ones. But if you have Robert Eddie, it's not a bad setup. They both have really good synergy with each other. So you still have lines in there as well. But when we talk about Garrison, unfortunately, it's a little bit more stuck. For Garrison, you're going to have Boyd. He is your number one Garrison hero. You're going to be running Boyd with Riven, probably the most often. Boyd Riven is a great line. If you have a Transcended Stella, you might do Boyd Stella. If you have an Awakened Eddie, you might do Boyd Eddie. If you have an Awakened Ryaro, you might do Ryaro Riven if you don't have Boyd. Or you might even do Thunder Tom, like I spoke about, and just run the rally forever. See what I'm saying? So you've got options there too. We've got a couple of good choices there. My favorite is still Boyd Riven. I like Boyd Stella, but I prefer Boyd Riven, to be honest. Boyd Stella to me just doesn't seem fair. I think Stella shouldn't be in Garrison. She's good though, good counter damage, good HP, you know, like the stuff that goes with it, but I just think that Boyd Riven has more synergy to me. But that's going to be it, guys. That's going to wrap it up for infantry heroes. We've gone through all 13 of them, all of their skills, all their abilities. We've gone through the rally lines for infantry. We've gone through the garrison lines for infantry. We've talked about field lines for infantry. Maybe we'll talk... No, actually, that's about it. We've gone through everything for infantry. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. If you did, smash the like button. Comment down below what you learned. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And don't forget to fill out the notification bell. These are all things that don't cost you anything. But they help the channel immensely. So if you can go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and fill out the notification bell, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you can, if you want to help support the channel, click the join button and become a member today. Okay? Help the channel out financially, as unfortunately IGG doesn't give a shit and YouTube doesn't pay very much. So, if you can pay out a little bit, that would be greatly appreciated. Don't think it's a necessity. Just do it if you want. Other than that, folks, thanks very much for tuning in. I've had a lot of fun. Love, peace, chicken grease, and until next time, stay lifted.